So Sydney Murphy, Mrs. Murphy, to me, because she was, well, I babysat for her, and I babysat Matthew. Gosh, I am wrong. But anyway, yeah.
It's all her fault.
That's what's wrong
Yeah.
with you.
But anyway, I used to babysit for her when I was in high school, and she was our high school guidance counselor as well. So I've known her, pretty much my whole life. And she's always been such a classy lady. She has been our judge for the past 10 years here in Polk County, and if you think of all the things that have changed over the past 10 years, and she's kind of had her hand in a lot of those changes and a lot of things that we've had to paddle through. So I want y'all to welcome her, and she's going to kind of give us a state of the county address.
Okay, well, thank you all for the hospitality as usual. I will say this, we brought our map that you can peruse and look at afterwards if you would like to. Those are all the grants that we are managing at this time or have been managing since 2018. So it kind of gives you an idea of what our office has been doing. I do have two staff members with me today. I have Jessica Hutchins, who's our grants and contracts manager and coordinator, and then I have Jennifer Thompson, who that is my clerk for judicial duties, and she's also the office manager. So we parking with us. So basically, what you all usually ask me to do is just kind of give you an update on progress that we've made in the county and kind of where we're headed or what the plans are. Let's start with our property taxes. This is an illustration. When I first came into office, the property tax rate was 0.6461, and at that time, that is what the residents, homeowners, were responsible for. So this gives you an illustration. I showed if you had a $100,000 home, what your property tax would be, and $200,000 and $500,000. So you can see what your property taxes would be. Now, in 2025, the tax rate is 0.5986, and it includes another additional discount, which is a 20% exemption, a homestead exemption that is from the county, not from the schools. So you have to keep those two separate. School taxes are completely separate from county taxes. And so then this shows you your illustration with the same values. Now keep in mind, we all know that appraisal rates are going up. And so part of it was in 2023, the court decided to provide some kind of relief to homeowners on their homesteads. And so this is the result, given the same values. Now, if you are one of those people that lives in an area where your value has increased, right, then we can't control that. However, you need to keep in mind that even though your value has increased, they cannot increase your taxes to that next value. It has to be incremental, and that's state mandated. So this gives you an idea of what the impact would be for the 20% exemption for our residential homesteads, for our residents who live in Polk County. Now, according to the Census Bureau, the home ownership in Polk County is about 78% compared to the state that is 63%. So the availability of home ownership is pretty high in Polk County. Okay, property taxes, an economic development example. So we do get some pushback sometimes from people that do not want tax abatements. So first of all, your highway system, transportation, economic development follows transportation. So with your property taxes, with economic development, this is an illustration of what we have right now in Polk County. So prior to the tax abatement, the county property revenue from 1,600 plus acres, which means it was timberland, was the tax revenue that we received was $2,152. That's prior to the tax abatement. Currently, the county tax revenue from that same tract of land, but with the improvements, is $107,675 plus. By 2027, with a tax abatement in place, that property tax revenue will go over $1 million. That's where the relief to homeowners comes from. Because if you have a budget and you're trying to provide services, well, then you are able to shift some of the responsibility that is falling on the homeowners. By 2034, this same exact tract of land, the property tax revenue will go almost to $2 million, 1.8 plus. See, so the tax abatements, we have never done a tax abatement that was not favorable to our local residents and our local businesses. So obviously these projects help decrease the tax burden on our residents because you have supplementary income coming in. Okay, I included this because we do emphasize that highways bring economic development, and I'm actually pretty proud that I got this award. They give 5, maximum of 6 people the Road Hand Award with TxDOT. There are only like 275, 78 people who have received that award in the state of Texas. And part of the reason that I received it was because I have worked on the I-69 project since I was at the Chamber of Commerce. So we've been working on having representation at transportation for an extensive amount of time. We didn't just jump up and decide to do it now. Okay, now we're going to talk about Jessica's bailiwick. So the total amount of money and grants that we have been able to capture in Polk County since 2018 is over $46 million. So that's not something to sneeze at. So that equates to $4.22 to every dollar from the county. Because none of those grants are just free. They don't just hand you the money. You have to do some kind of matching, and sometimes the matching isn't necessarily a dollar. It's not necessarily money. It's in kind. You know, you provide the property, or you provide access or equipment, or you fund something else that would bring that grant to the county. So some of those grants are your water infrastructure grants and partnerships. So what we did with that is we had some funds available to us, and I am going to tell you that it started with the ARPA funds. So the ARPA funds and Harvey mitigation monies were utilized to start with our water infrastructure. You have to keep in mind that in the unincorporated areas, which is me, in the county, we have no authority over water boards, water suppliers, water providers. Those are independent businesses. They have a board that regulates that business and makes financial decisions or infrastructure decisions, whatever the case might be. In the cities are responsible for the water infrastructure. And they were eligible for some of the same grant funding that the county accepted, okay? So, if we look at our water infrastructure partnership, we offered ARPA funds, Harvey mitigation funds, and our hazard mitigation grant program through TDM. We offered funding, and we managed our own grant program. So we took the monies and we offered it as a grant to all of the water providers in Polk County. They decided whether or not they wanted to participate or not. And so what we did is we offered for them to basically do their wish list of how they needed to proceed, and we paid 75% of the project to their 25%. Now, not all of our water providers wanted to participate, and so what we did is we highlighted the ones that did participate and did go through the process with the asterisks. So you can see who did participate and who was offered but declined. So the water corporations all report to TCEQ. We do not have any oversight capability with them. TCEQ is who manages water corporations in the unincorporated areas. And actually TCEQ is also the group that participates with cities in terms of if they have any issues as well. Okay, this is probably one of the projects that I'm most proud of, and you all have heard about this before when I came and spoke to you about fiber connectivity and broadband and communication partnerships. So again, internet, fiber connectivity also drives economic development. And what could be more important than connecting schools, healthcare, businesses, and residents to internet, to fiber connectivity? It's become essential to everyday living. So what we did is in 2018, actually, we formed a committee that would tell us what they felt like the infrastructure needs were. And these were independent citizens. They were just interested. And the first thing they said was, we need internet and we need broadband. When COVID hit, we already had a map that showed where our black spots were in terms of internet. So when the state of Texas showed up and said, oh my, it looks like you have a dark spot, we said, yeah, that's it right there on our map. And so we formed a partnership with East Tex Telephone and with Highline, and they took it. Highline received the $326,574, and they matched it 50-50. East Tex moved forward with their match, and they did a 60-40. They were the 60, we were the 40. Since then, East Tex has continued to build out because they were able to capture other grants. They were able to use our monies to move forward on projects that they already had in the queue. See, so that catapulted them forward, and they were able to capitalize off of that. And so if I were to sit down now and say, okay, what is their contribution to our money, it would probably be closer to 80-20. Not only did they do that, but they provided free connectivity to our 440-foot communications tower. They were already coming past it, they provided additional funding and moved on. Which brings us to our communications tower. So part of the importance of our communications tower is because it creates complete connectivity during an emergency. I have to say, thank goodness we did not have a hurricane this year, at least not so far, unless we get a really big one, right? And they had projected there would be a really active hurricane season, and it wasn't.
The Gulf of America is mute.
There you go. Okay, so the ARPA, so what we did with the ARPA funding is we went to the court, we asked the court to determine the guidelines and where we would spend the money. Instead of spending a little bit everywhere and not really going anywhere, the court agreed to spend it on water and internet and communications. So of the ARPA funds, we provided $2 million to the construction of the tower, which allows full communications for law enforcement, for all emergency management situations, for first responders, for everybody that is in that area. And that closed the gap for us in terms of communications in the county. Corrigan ISD did not have even enough communications for their buses to be able to communicate with their bus barn. So we had to do something in that area. And so that's where the communications tower is. It's in precinct 3, which is Milton Purvis's area. And let me tell you, Milt's learned way more than he ever wanted to know about communications and radios and equipment and capability. Unfortunately, we were not able to add our ham operators to this tower because they were not receiving the distances that they needed for them to be able to have a spot on there. Okay, now to the elephant in the living room, right? The courthouse. So what we've done is we kind of we're giving you a timeline of what's going on and why we're there. There have been some questions about why would you put a generator on a building like this, and the reason is because you have to make sure we live in East Texas, and so if there is ever any flooding, and the majority of incidents that we've had of flooding, of true flooding in that building, was man-made. It was pipes that burst. So we have a sump pump, a good sump pump in the bottom, in the basement, so that if we do ever have that situation happen again, then the sump pump will kick in and get the water out of the building. So you don't want any of your internet connectivity, any of your fiber, you don't want damage to the building, and so we added a generator. We do not, because of the fiber connectivity, because of the capabilities that we have, nobody has to be in the building if there's an emergency, so human resources will still be able to pay people, the treasurer, the auditor, everybody can continue to operate. They will not be in the building, but the building will be protected. So let me give you a timeline. We've kind of separated the timelines a little bit just because otherwise it gets confusing to some degree. So these are the historic designations, and that word is very important. The designation is very important. So in 2000, you have the initial information. 1905, the annex. 1923, the courthouse itself was built. And then you have in 2000, it was added to the National Historic Places. So then in 2001, so keep in mind this is a timeline. So in 2001, the courthouse and the annex building that is sitting on the courthouse square were designated as state antiquities landmarks. The minute you get that SAL designation, then the Texas Historical Commission will be involved in your life from now on. Okay, so once you get that designation, that is the highest historical designation offered by the state of Texas. And what it does is it very specifically states that property cannot be removed, it cannot be altered, it cannot be damaged, it cannot be salvaged, and it can't be excavated. So you can't even dig out a drainage line without notifying the Texas Historical Commission. So basically their review authority kicked in 2001. In 2012, the THC held an active conservation easement. So their conservation easement was already active in 2012. And that was part of the Round 7 elevator grant. So how many of y'all remember the hideous elevator that sat on the outside?
Yeah.
Right? So because the county had defaced the front of the building, the elevator had to be moved inside the building before the court could proceed with anything else. So it had to be brought in, had to meet those requirements, and so at that point, not only do they still have an easement, but now you've accepted monies because they paid for moving the elevator. So now let's look at the preservation efforts. So In 1999 is when the legislature created the Historic Courthouse Preservation Program. In 2000, the county hired someone to develop a master plan for the courthouse renovation and any expansion, and that master plan was submitted to the Texas Historical Commission. In 2001, all review or authority lay with the Texas Historical Commission, and that is the first time that Polk County formally started applying for grants. This is 2025. So the applications have been going on forever. At least it feels that way to me. Okay, so the emergency grant was awarded in 2012 for the courthouse elevator. The Texas Historical Conservation easement was established, which legally requires, again, Texas Historical Commission oversight. In 2014, Polk County was awarded emergency funding for courthouse roof repairs. So you see how multiple times Polk County has accepted money, and multiple times THC has said, that's our conservation easement. So in 2015, restoration planning had been underway for 15 years. Multiple grants had been awarded or completed, and historic protection was already in place. So we went through the process again, and prior to Jessica arriving on our team, we went through the process again, and eventually in 2018, we received a round 10 planning grant, which means that the Texas Historical Commission will come in, look at the building, review it, look at previous improvements, go through the whole thing with you before they will award you a planning grant. We were able to get that. In 2020, we did the request for full restoration, and which was in round 11, and we submitted those, and it included the initial cost estimate, and the initial cost estimate was $10,103,625, and the rate per square foot was $706 per square foot. I don't know what schools get built for now, but it's not a home. Okay, in 2021, we received notice from THC that we had received the grant award. And then, there we were, middle of everything, right? So in 2022, we ended up having to borrow money because COVID had spiked all prices. So what we did is the court, you could see prices going up. Our bond rating is very, very good. So we were able to borrow money for 2.3%. And we put that in a savings account, and we've been utilizing it, and it peaked, okay? The interest rate for the money that we had set aside peaked at 5.8%. So there was a period of time, an extended period of time, where we were making money off of the money that we borrowed. Now that doesn't take away from the fact that the cost of the construction has increased, right? I mean, it does not take away from that. So the project ended up getting awarded at $15 million, right? So you have a $5 million increase, which is basically what we borrowed. Actually, it's slightly more because the bonds were able to sell for increased value because of our rating. So the project was awarded at a cost of $15,732,842. Is it an increase? You bet it is. But the question is, we cannot tear it down. We cannot demolish it. We cannot neglect it. We were halfway through a project. We can't return the money. So the question is, I understand that obviously I'd rather build a building at 50% off. But am I going to turn away 33% savings? There's nothing, there's no fault, there's no one we can point at, there's no one we can blame.
It's just
It is what it is.
yeah, the computer.
And the majority of the things that are required to go into a historic building, a lot of them are not even manufactured in the United States. Think about your homes. There's a lot of plastic, a lot of aluminum.
To October states, I will be tapped.
So we began demolition in 2023, and we kept on going. Okay, the last thing I have, first of all, we received the Senate Bill 22 monies, which was geared strictly towards law enforcement. And so part of what the county's been trying to do, did we see the picture before that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no, never mind. Okay, so part of what the county has been trying to do at the same time is to bring our employees up to a manageable salary. We have to be competitive, and we have to be competitive across the board, not just in one area or another area. So this is kind of showing you where we are now. So if you focus on the very bottom part, basically what we did is we compile the information of employees, of the number of employees that are in each range. So if you look at the bottom part, the range, there's 4 employees that are in that area. So our health insurance is wonderful, but wonderful does not come cheap. But at the same time, we know that we have employees that need all the help they can get, and that's a way for us to provide assistance to them, is through health insurance. So we have the base pay, and then you have what the total cost is to the taxpayers. So that gives you an illustration. These are all people that are in what we call our 100 pay group. Okay, so now this is the people that are in the 200 pay group, which is law enforcement. So you have the same range that occurs. You have your 211, which is all your corrections officers. You have your 215, which shows you all the deputies' pay. You have group 217, which is your sergeants, and then you have your lieutenants, and then the final one is your chief deputy sheriff. So we used all SB 22 monies to assist somewhere in the sheriff's department, but I gotta tell you, the state of Texas is gonna claw that money back. They always start out saying, oh, we got this great grant, we've got this great scheme, and we're gonna provide this. I see nodding over here with Crystal, yep, and Dr. Pat, yep, they're gonna claw it back. At that point, it will fully become a taxpayer bill. So we're working, because one of the problems that I think we have is that we have some of our employees that are not making enough money, and they are actually eligible for government assistance. So we have to get those people. We have to lift them. And you know, a high tide lifts all ships. So we're trying to create slowly, incrementally. I know people get discouraged because they don't think it's happening fast enough, but those kind of changes have to be done slowly. We have to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves, and we have to make sure that our budget continues to be completely balanced. We have received the GFOA award every year since I took office, including the year that we were able to eliminate the deficit, because we cut, and balance the budget. So, questions, if you have any questions about grants or specific programs, Jessica will be here as well. If you want to take a look at the map, if you have any questions for me.
I'm just really curious about the old J. What happens to that? It just sits there, it's not utilized, it's just safe, because it hasn't been.
Okay, so the question was, what are we doing with the old jail? Is it being utilized? Is it just sitting there? The court made a huge commitment to go in and restore those portions of the jail. The overcrowding, obviously, at the jail has been a tremendous issue. And staffing is still a tremendous issue. We have jailers, we have 10 positions that have not been filled. They're funded, but they're not filled. So yes, we've made a commitment to go in and restore that. This past budget, we had to spend over $700,000 restructuring the water heaters, the plumbing, all of that in that area. Any of us can do the math that we're going to have to do something to get people out of jail quicker, because at $65 a day in Louisiana per inmate, and we peaked at 104 inmates for several days. So I can do the math, 100 inmates there, $65 a day. That's way more than any of us want to pay. So yes, we have been working on that actively.
That's a good point.
Anybody else?
What's the story with the other ugly thing at the courthouse? Are you gonna tear that down? It's got animals in it, cattle farm falling down?
That's not work.
Or
Yeah.
is it that we don't own that anymore, the historical?
You're back to the historical commission. And
Do we
actually,
let them tear it down?
I would love to be real honest. And I know Gary Davis is cringing back there in the back.
I'll tear it down.
So actually, I'll date myself. When we first moved to the U.S., that was a beautiful building. It was beautiful. It had like a sweeping staircase. They wouldn't let you in because it was already falling apart, right? But then came the trusses, and the trusses came because there was a local group that wanted that building saved and preserved. And so those trusses and that structure are still under the historical commission. I tried to kind of maneuver around that, and they didn't let me do it, because I thought, okay, if I apply for additional grant monies and call it a courthouse square, right, then that would incorporate that building. And the historical commission said, no, ma'am, no, that's separate.
So would there be a fine, let's say a truck just runs to that building and demolishes it, is there a fine for that?
There might be a ticket. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to encourage that. But no, we don't. It's part of the. And actually, I would hesitate to say this, but I'm pretty sure that the restrictions on that building came into effect before we even did anything with the courthouse. Because
It is a hazard, though.
and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
That building was considered the annex in our presentation. When you heard the word annex, that's what that was originally was. So that was designated at the same time as the
Another
courthouse.
quick question.
Yes, sir.
Have any data centers come to you asking for a beef?
No, sir. At this point, we have not heard from any data centers. We have not received any requests for large commercial water wells. We are keeping an eye on that. I will tell you this, Polk County, we have 2 watersheds We have the Trinity and the Natchez watershed. I did at one time, there was a senator from Texas that said, well, you know, I don't understand, you don't understand the importance of water to blah, blah, blah. And I said, and you know what, as soon as you send Polk County residents a big oil pipeline, we will send the same pipeline back and we'll sell you our water. But in the meantime, it's ours.
That we do.
Yes.
And anybody ever prayed for an earthquake?
Plans for an interstate?
Let us know. I'm praying for an earthquake for a couple months ago.
Oh, well, you all can have your prayer group if you want to. Maybe you can do it at Methodist Men's. You know, but
Griff, you're a great candidate. You're 90. What have you got?
what you got, Chad?
So, I mean, the courthouse looks a lot better. I mean, I think there's been some progress on it. So,
Oh, yeah.
And maybe I missed it, but do you have a date in mind, or when you think it's going to actually
Listen,
be
at
done?
this point, I have no date in mind. At this point, I've reached the really selfish mode, and all of us are tired of living in each other's pockets. I mean, literally, the staff in my office, we have one person that is in a space that is smaller than what Todd and Alex are occupying. Because we're out of space. And I'm just glad my team gets along. Because, you know, a little bit togetherness, after a while, you're like, phew, give me a break. So, yes, sir.
As complex, like 15 years ago, the old Pettigo building, hard to understand. Where does that fall into?
Okay, at one time, and we weren't able to find it, at one time there was a master plan that included the judicial center, which is what you're referencing, the old Pettigo building, and the courthouse together. And it was a very nice schematic, because what it showed was that instead of that street, you know, there were trees planted and picnic tables or something like that. So it was a nice architectural schematic, I would say. But at one time, those were considered kind of a plan together. Out of that, you ended up only with a judicial center, which is, and the judicial center was also pretty creative, because what they did was the buildings that were structurally sound, they kept. And then they went in and kind of restored the inside of the building to where it was completely functional. If you go into one of the courtrooms, that's actually, the beams are still in there from a previous auto garage. So it's a neat building, but that was separate.
Let's get to that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so whenever you, I'm so sorry, but what you about? So in the early 2000s, they actually, like she said, they had a master plan together. It was just easier to achieve the judicial center because they didn't have THC overseeing everything, because from 2000 to today, you know, 2012, they had been applying each year for that grant. So that's why the change in progress.
My concern is you're making a long-term commitment to a courthouse that's going to be stuck here for another 100 years. What about that judicial system across the street?
Oh, yeah, that
Longevity plan?
Oh, yes, it has a longevity plan. That is one of the things that we did also, is we formed committees that would evaluate our buildings, so that buildings do not fall so far back in disrepair. And so we now have a committee, and we also have established a plan with our maintenance department for them to actually have, you know, every 5 years this building's going to get repainted, or every 10 years this is going to happen. So now we have a plan for maintenance. So no, the judicial center is in very good shape.
So it's not really cool.
No.
Okay.
One last question, is the IAH bonds paid off, and now the county's getting profit off that?
Oh, absolutely. I can hardly wait for that IAH money. Can I explain that real quick, or you ready? Okay, so what happened with IAH is the bonds, the bond holders have now been paid off, And so now the revenue from IEH will be coming to the county, which will provide more tax relief and more monies for infrastructure needs. At this point, we're waiting for ICE to sign contracts so that we know what to put in the budget and what that's going to look like. It was actually the IEH facility that created, because at that time they were not bringing people into the facility, and that's actually what helped create the majority of the $1.4 million deficit that we were faced with. But no, I am looking forward to the day, and we should be able to finalize as soon as ICE tells us what the contract's gonna look like.
Thank you. Thank you. Great.
Looks like we're looking for what this is.
Yeah,